Hi, this is Dr. Gary Sprouse. I'm the Less Stressed Doc, and welcome to the Happiness Highway podcast. This is a show where we'll put together to get you into your happy place and stay there and get rid of all the stresses that are keeping you from there. And today I got my wife with me, Terry.
Good morning.
And we have our special guest, Billy Humphey.
Drive on Happiness Highway.
So he's the executive director of a place called City of Refuge. And I got involved with City of Refuge when I went to California, believe it or not. So I'm in California and I meet this guy, Bruce, right? And he's talking about his deal. He has a nonprofit that's in Atlanta. He's told this whole backstory. And I was like, wow, that's an impressive story. I want to get involved with that organization, but I live in Maryland and going to Atlanta, that's too far away. And he goes, oh, well, we do have a sister facility in Baltimore. I'm like, now Baltimore I can do, right? So in the lobby in California, he's texting Billy going, hey, I got this guy who wants to get in touch with you. And Billy's texting him back in the lobby of a hotel in California, texting with Billy Humphey, right? And it's like, so we got together. It's been a good relationship so far. So I wanted Billy to come on because last episode, what we were talking about was holidays. And we were talking about celebrating how much we have. But what you realize is there are people in this country, in Baltimore in particular, that don't have as much as they need. So City of Refuge is one of the answers to that problem. I want you to explain to us, what City of Refuge does and how you got started.
Our mission is that we exist to bring light, hope, and transformation to individuals and families. And our goal really is to be a one-stop shop for people in poverty and crisis. And so we focus on the major social determinants of health that impact systemic poverty. And in particular, we have what's called 5 impact areas, 4 of which are those prominent social determinants of health. And that's health and wellness, workforce development, supportive housing, youth empowerment. And then that 5th impact area for us is anti-trafficking. If you're familiar with the South Baltimore community of Brooklyn, a very disadvantaged community in that it's a food desert, digital desert, open air drug market, open air sex trade. A lot of challenges, but I like to think of it also as opportunities in which we, City of Refuge, can come alongside of somebody and bring a little hope to life.
Well, so one of the things that I've been reading is that humans have an incredible amount of skill, but if they're not in the right environment, the skill gets lost and they get this thing called learned helplessness where they feel like there's nothing I can do, it's just the way it's gonna be. And it's like, your kind of organization says, those people, they have learned helplessness, so they don't think they can do anything, but they actually have a lot of resources and a lot of abilities, they just don't know yet. That's one of the things that I liked about your organization. I mean, you have some great taglines, I know.
I grew up in systemic poverty. I think there's a resiliency and a little bit of a survivor mentality,
Yeah,
but in the
absolutely.
same right, you sort of get attached to certain systems and it's sometimes hard to think outside the box. And so sometimes we're given a handout as well as a hand up, right? So it's this idea that if we meet somebody at their point of need, that most basic need in their life, and in some cases it might be food insecurity, it might be a job training or a job fair that we're hosting at our facility or an after-school program. So you sort of meet them at that basic need, but then you build some trust, and in the process of building trust, then you can offer that hand up, which is sort of what's next in your journey that we can guide you on, right? I mean, really it's their journey, but we want to guide them and walk with them and hopefully remove some barriers along the way.
When you're talking about barriers, for somebody to get a job, they need a way to get to the job. And you're like, okay, we'll just get a used car. And you're like, well, but that's only the first step, right? I mean, then you got to get insurance. You got there's all these other things that go into getting a car.
We have had the privilege of giving away a few cars, and it's one of the coolest things I get to do because it not only is a wonderful gift, but it removes a lot of barriers, right? When you're in a food desert and you have a vehicle, you can get to a grocery store faster. When you're unemployed and you have a vehicle, you can get to your job faster. And when you're relying on public transportation and sort of their schedule, it can create some barriers to employment. Just thinking on a bus ride an hour long to a grocery store, you're adding 2 hours of transportation that otherwise would be 15, 20 minutes round trip with your own automobile. I know that doesn't sound true, but it is, and it's the challenges many people face in disadvantaged communities. But you know what? Giving away a car is like a first step, but you know what? Then they have to insure it.
For young people in particular, car insurance can be really expensive just because of their age.
That's correct. Yeah, we gave away a car to a 19-year-old. That was the first one I gave away to sort of an under 25. Titled it in his name, went and got it Maryland inspected. So we thought, man, we're set. Used, but it passed Maryland inspection. The one challenge is, went to get insurance, $480 a month.
A month?
a month. Of course, the longer he had insurance and good driving record, it started to come down. Think that, hey, now once you acquire a car, you insure it, you get it tagged and titled and taxes and inspected, and now you have to do insurance on top of that. So it's a real challenge. So
That's almost as expensive as the car itself would be.
I would suggest for the car we gave him, it was more expensive. But because of his age and where he lived, that was the cost of insurance, $480 a month.
Yeah, so one of the things, you have a food bank and you have a kitchen, right? Because I know, Terry, you were going to talk about teaching some people how to cook vegetables.
My experience of having owned a recovery residence is that when the residents would go to the food bank, they would come back with food that was available, but not necessarily how to prepare it. My youngest son came home from college one weekend. I knew he was coming home, and I'd stocked the refrigerator, and he opened up the refrigerator and said, "There's no food in here." I said, "What do you mean there's no food in here? I just went to the grocery store." He says, "Well, there's ingredients, but there's no food." That's the problem I saw with the recovery residents. They would go to the food pantry and they would bring home kale, and they were like, what is this? How do you fix this? So one of my goals is next year, beginning of the year, I'm going to go shopping at Billy's food pantry and come up with recipes that are simple, not too extravagant, but simple, and help the people who come to the food bank know what to do with the food that they have available to them at the food pantry. They might get a can of cannellini beans and like, what's this? How do you fix this? And that's for coming to City of Refuge.
I'm looking forward to it. Our out-of-school time program, we call it Level Up. One of the segments we do is cooking class. And I've always been surprised at our feedback responses from the students at the end of the school year when they point back and they say those cooking classes were oftentimes one of their most favorite things. Because, when you grow up in systemic poverty, you oftentimes, not always, but in many cases, you're eating heat and eat stuff, right? Pop the can, put it in a bowl and microwave that thing, right? But we like to teach people how to cook and to cook more healthy, right? Once heard somebody say, I want to go to America where the poor people are fat. And one of the reasons why is because the cheaper food are the food that is not healthy. I'm obviously a guy that loves some affinity for food, but it's one thing to come in with vegetables bought at a fancy grocery store versus stuff you're getting from a food bank. So I'm really excited because it can say, hey, you can take this food and turn it into this and really have a wonderful meal that's both healthy and more nutritious. I'm looking forward to it. Matter of fact, I might take the class too. So.
Yeah, but her skill is vegetables.
Yes. I am not a vegetarian, but I love vegetables. As again, when I had the recovery residents, and they're like, oh, we don't like vegetables. I'm like, well, how are you fixing it? And they go, well, I open the can and I put it in a bowl and I stick it in the microwave. And I'm like, is that how you insult your meat? Because I'm sure you're doing more to your meat than you are. So, we have some very good vegetables at home. And I'm looking forward to sharing that skill.
It doesn't have to be complicated either, right? So, you're talking about some kind of like 5-ingredient meals or something?
Well, when I did the recovery residents, I know they're not Rachel Ray. So, my goal was to show them how to make a complete meal, delicious and nutritious with 5 ingredients. And I didn't count salt, pepper, or water, but if I can get them to make a delicious, nutritious meal from scratch with 5 ingredients or less, that was a victory, a huge victory.
Yeah.
Because most of the time they were just running down to the convenience store down the street and getting, fried chicken or a sub sandwich or something already prepared, pizza, but it's not something you can sustain your health on. You need to have some healthy food.
Well, I'll sign up to eat that food.
Okay.
Gary, you and I can be the taste
There you
testers
go,
that day.
Oh, I've been the tester for a number of years now.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. I really am. I think it's going to be a great class, and I think it's really, go back to the title of our podcast, it's going to make people happy. That they can take some food bank food and turn it into a great tasting meal.
I'm looking forward to the challenge of not knowing what's going to be in the food pantry at that moment and have to come up with something. That's going to be a real challenge.
Yeah, so tell me about the building.
So City of Refuge started in 2018, purchased a building. We were operating out of a 6,000 square foot building initially. That is now our youth center. And about 6 blocks away, we purchased a building that's almost 50,000 square foot.
And growing?
And growing, yeah, absolutely. We have a big vision about building out the workforce development space. It's got a commercial kitchen. Some of our workforce development programs are really taking off. We have a culinary arts job training program. We do various shops and trade-based trades academy. And we do a lot of soft skills stuff. stuff. So that sort of, customer service, hospitality, but sort of that show up on time, be careful what you say about your boss on social media, all those kind of basic skills. Matter of fact, we found many employers are willing to give job seekers a chance, especially if they got those soft skills chance. They feel like they can teach the hard skills they need if we can send them someone with some soft skills. And so we focus all of our training, even our hard skill based trainings, with some soft skills in there. The IT infrastructure stuff, hubs, routers, and switches, and all that kind of stuff. Matter of fact, several of the students from our first class actually passed the Cisco certification. We pay for their first test, and it's not uncommon that students may not pass it the first time, so we get them through that, give them test material. But 2 of our students passed first time around. We were really excited in the first round. We'll see what happens in this class, though.
So I was just at a Rotary Club meeting this morning. The people that were presenting were doing something with computers. They called it bookending. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And so they were teaching young kids computer skills, but they were also teaching classes that were 55 and older. They had as many people come into that class.
Yeah.
Because people that are older, they didn't grow up with computers.
That's correct.
So I don't know if you do anything.
Yeah, our computer literacy class actually is predominantly filled. We'll invite anyone and it's welcome, but majority of our students in those classes are 55 and over.
Oh, okay,
So,
yeah.
how to turn a computer on, right? How to have an email and access your email, and some basic social media, but also to get on the internet and do some research. You're right, majority of those are over 55s who sort of didn't grow up with technology.
I understand the food desert where there's not a grocery store nearby, but you said there was an internet desert.
Over a third of our homes have no home-based internet service, no home-based internet service provider. It's available to them, but because of the poverty, they don't pay for it. And so if you think about it there, that presents a lot of challenges. And then typically they may have a smartphone and that's really their only access to the internet. So you can think, a typical podcast training, job training, if you're doing that all digital and to sort of do that on your mobile device while all the other distractions are going on, you're getting pinged on social media here and there. Now, if you're an elder, you probably don't even have a smartphone, right? You probably got the old school flip phone, right? The digital divide. And actually only recently, within probably the last 12 to 18 months, has fiber optics even been brought into our neighborhood.
Really?
I know that sometimes is like,
Yeah,
right?
that is. Like I'm sitting there going, wait, it's in the city.
Yeah, all over.
Like we live in Kent Island where it's a little more rural and it takes a lot of money to run cable all the way down, but in the city, it's like,
Yeah, when I had the recovery residence, and it was in an old hotel building, but I previously worked in technology, and when we were renovating the building, it was important to me that we had technology available in the building. Yeah. So we had Wi-Fi throughout the building, and we had a computer lab. And as you said, a lot of our residents were lower income and did not have technology available to them. And when they came to the hotel, the recovery residents, they were like, wow, this is great. And then, slam, we got hit with the pandemic. So a lot of their IOP and their doctor's appointments and their AA meetings, it was all virtual, and clients in other recovery residences didn't have the technology available to them, but ours did, and it was such a luxury. Things that we consider normal, and that's a luxury to them.
You hear a lot about learning loss in our education system, and again, think about a third of the homes did not have home-based internet. So when the pandemic hit, all academics went virtual. That left a third, proportionately, right, of the students behind.
Yeah.
It's very important in the current economy that we live in today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although it's not considered a utility, I would consider it as important as running water and electricity into a house.
I think it's pretty important in the 21st century, for sure. In 2024, it's pretty hard to get by. The mobile device has become the research tool, the information tool. We're getting a little cyborgy, right? It's becoming a part of us.
Tell me how many people you help.
Across those 5 impact areas, of course, there's several programs under each of those 5 major impact areas. In the last 12 months, we've served over 5,000 families, a little over 15,000 individuals when you're talking about number of households. And so a lot of that's food insecurity, but workforce development, youth empowerment. Our supportive housing, we have 13 beds under roof that we do permanent supportive housing. But we also do tons of case management, helping people with eviction assistance, rental assistance, all the above. So that's why we call it the one-stop shop for people.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. That was one of the things that attracted me what Bruce was doing in Atlanta, because one of the things that I had seen was that somebody would have to go to the health insurance to get their this, and they'd have to go to food stamps to go to a different place. he had it set up where everybody came to one place. So I assume
Correct.
this is the same way
Yeah,
you're doing.
we're following that model. So things we don't do, we invite partners in to do it. A great example is in the Brooklyn community today, there is no primary care doctor. And so we partner with MedStar Harbor Hospital, who parks their mobile medical unit right in front of our facility every Monday. And so they set up reoccurring appointments, follow-up visits. They're doing primary care doctors out of a mobile medical unit parked right out front of City of Refuge. And that's a great example. We have case managers that come in, social workers that come in from other organizations. We also bring in WIC regarding childhood nutrition, and they come in twice a month. So again, when I say one-stop shop for people in poverty, it doesn't mean we're doing it all. It means we're bringing in the partners to try to bring a holistic approach. And the idea is, as you said just a minute ago, Gary, and that is, so we don't have to go over here for food and over here for this and over here for that, and we can all come here to City Refuge and sort of do it in that one place. And I think that adds a lot more dignity.
It makes it a lot less complicated because with transportation being an issue, if you have to go to 10 different places, like what I've seen is people don't understand how complicated some of these systems are, like filling out forms and making sure you meet criteria and all this other stuff. I mean, there's a lot involved in it. So then having to get there and travel and meet different people and different secretaries and different times on hold, having to do it all in one place makes it way more convenient, way more likely that people will take advantage of like, hey, while I'm here, if I can do this, I can do this at the same time. That would make it a lot more easy.
It's trying to remove those barriers,
Yeah.
I think of that. I always say the core of what we do is we're like little Yodas. We just, this is the way. We're a guide for them on the journey. You know what I mean? This idea of, someone's journey out of poverty is their journey out of poverty or out of crisis, right? Whatever the situation may be. For us, it isn't that, we're there to save them or we're there to make them happy. I really like to think of it as we remove the barriers or limit the barriers in such a way that while they're walking on that journey to self-sufficiency, they find happiness.
This is the whole theme that I talk about. Like, I think we were all meant to be in a happy place. And there's these things these roadblocks that keep us from getting there. And my job is the psychological part of getting rid of the barriers that are keeping us from that place. And your job sounds like keeping some of the physical barriers out of the way, right?
I think that's a great way to explain it.
I can see why you need a 50,000 square foot building. You're trying to make it even bigger, right?
We're in planning to build out a 13,000 square foot workforce development space now. Long term, we hope to add an additional almost 30,000 square foot, which will be all housing. So one of the biggest challenges to face for people in systemic poverty and crisis is the housing crisis, right? The cost of housing keeps going up. The wages aren't keeping up with those costs. And certainly if you're on a fixed income, unless you're on some type of subsidized housing, it can really be a challenge. And so we want to focus our housing on where we see gaps in the services. Someone coming out of prison, someone coming out of rehab, someone coming off the street. Or out of the life, we refer to it as. We want to focus on women. There's a lot more housing availability for men in crisis than there are women. And so we hope to establish a good, loving, safe place for people to sort of settle in, feel safe, experience the love that we share at City Refuge, and then have access to healthy food. Go to your cooking class. Jump into that basic computer literacy, and maybe one day go to that auto training center, and next thing you know, we'll plug you into a job working for a service center somewhere, and now you have the income that you can buy a car, get on the road, and get to job every day.
So it sounds like you have this great idea. My wife and I are getting involved. She's going to be doing cooking classes. I'm going to be doing some stress reduction classes. For our audience, is there a way they can help out?
Yeah, absolutely. Check us out at our website, www.cityofrefugebaltimore.org, O-R-G, or you can follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We'd love for you to follow us there. You can jump in, learn more about what we do. There's places where you can connect and volunteer, give, all of the above. So help us get the word out about what we're doing. Come be, this is what we call it to everybody that gets involved with us. These are hope dealers right here, and you can come be a hope dealer with us. We like to say we're bringing hope to life. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thanks for being on our show with us today. So that's our show for today. This is awesome. Thank you, Billy, for being with us and teach us about City of Refuge. And so sometimes, we want to be in our happy place. Giving is one of the ways to get in that happy place, right? And what I find is that there are people out there that have have been disadvantaged, and they need, I like that line. We're not here to give you a handout, we're here to give you a hand up. And I think that, the idea of giving somebody fish versus teaching them how to fish. And I think what you're doing and putting it all in one place, getting rid of all the barriers, is an awesome way to do it, right? So thanks for being on our show today. If you want to see more, just go to our website. It's called thelessstresseddoc.com. If you have some specific question that you need, just come email me at lessstresseddoc@gmail.com. Get my books, Mindset Matters, Highway to Your Happy Place. We got some other stuff coming out. I got an online course coming out, and I'm going to have an audiobook coming out soon. I'm starting to work on my next book, The Highway to Your Happy Place. Road Mile 2. That's coming up soon. So anyway, thanks for being with us, and come back next time. See you later.